To thrive in the gig economy, many successful freelancers create a robust online presence with a professional website and active social media profiles to showcase their work and attract clients. Highlighting unique skills and consistently delivering high-quality work enhances your reputation. Focusing on niche services where demand is high but competition is low allows you to stand out. Stay informed about market trends and adapt your offerings to meet changing needs. Leveraging multiple digital platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, and TaskRabbit increases your visibility and client base. Ensure your profiles are optimized with clear service descriptions, professional photos, and examples of your work. Effective marketing strategies, such as networking in online forums and creating valuable content related to your niche, establish you as an authority. Use productivity tools to manage your time efficiently and maintain a work-life balance to avoid burnout. These strategies help gig workers maximize opportunities and build sustainable careers.
Jeffrey, how important is personal branding for young professionals engaging in micro internships?
Yeah, I think, again, I sort of get a bit antsy around the term personal branding. I think people think about it the wrong way. One of the things that's been most interesting for me to see is that the employers want to look beyond what would normally be considered part of that personal brand. They want to look beyond where someone went to school or GPA when they're on the Parker Dewey platform. And it was one of the things that was, again, most important to me when we started the company. If we were seeing everyone who was getting selected be the highest GPA or come from the Ivy League schools, I would sort of scratch my head and have some issues with that, because that wasn't the goal. The goal was to create these equitable pathways. But one of the things that we found is over 80% of the students selected for the micro internship, so not on the platform, but actually selected, come from populations underrepresented in the workforce. That doesn't include just racial or ethnic diversity, but first-generation college students, non-native English speakers, veterans, adult learners, Pell eligible. So we're seeing these equitable pathways. And what we're finding is these gig-based experiences, these micro internships, are helping the learners create their personal brand and do so in a way that matters most to employers. So it's been interesting to me watching, again, the discussions around badging and credentialing and certifications and the like over the past 10 years and some of the challenges with getting traction in that space. What we found is we're empowering the student to generate a series of experiences that they can put on their resumes and help employers evaluate their skills, whether they did a micro internship for them or a different company. It provides a way for the employer to evaluate the skills and make hiring decisions with better, more predictive information as opposed to relying on the non-predictive signal of GPA major in school.
Jeffrey, is it really an updated, instead of a corporation reaching out to different temp agencies, being able to have a single platform?
Not really, because again, this isn't about someone being out for maternity and needing someone to sit at the front desk or file, or we need an experienced accountant to help us during busy season. Companies are really using this as a key part of their recruiting tool. So I'm going to a career fair, but maybe I don't have the brand recognition of some of the other companies. Well, let's offer micro internships as a way to drive students to our booth, or as a way to keep those students warm within our recruiting funnel. Or maybe there's certain schools we can't visit, so we don't, again, have access to the students. Let's use micro internships as a way to engage those students. And then again, it's the whole concept of this gig as a pathway. So the gig itself, the individual project, is great and certainly provides value, but unlike the temp workers, they're really using this as a way to, for lack of a better term, audition potential candidates to see their skills beyond what you could find from a resume or even an interview.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Very practical. Sergio, you mentioned having so many apps on your phone. Like, how does one stand out and succeed on multiple platforms? Like, what can you do? What can a gig worker do to stand out?
Not much. I mean, look, I have a relationship with all these companies. I've interviewed all their CEOs actually on our channel. I call it the way I see it, and the companies could do a lot more, right? But then as a gig worker, You're just a number to these companies, and there are massive algorithms that are running in the background. Who gets what order, what trip, matching systems. There's very complex things. They have made the back end of the business very complex, although on our end, on the gig workers end, it's pretty simple. You pick up point A, drop off point B. It seems very simple, right? But it's really not. On the back end, there is a lot that's going on as far as incentives and things like that. So for you to stand out as a gig worker to any of these companies, you just got to be playing their game correctly. I mean, it's a gamified system, and you have to play the game correctly. And that's what we try to do on the channel. We try to tell people, I mean, there is, we call something called 3 Ps, right? 3 Ps are, you have to be patient, right? You have to position yourself correctly. And then let's say if you're doing deliveries, well, you want to be near a row of restaurants so you can get an order quicker, right? I mean, there's certain common sense things, but then you have to have certain strategies involved to stand out actually from the gig worker or a Uber driver or a Lyft driver or a DoorDasher to actually increase your earnings. I mean, there are ways to do it, and we have done our surveys, many of them. And to stand out, this is how you do it, right? You use a little bit of strategy, use a little bit of common sense. And we've noticed that in the same city during the same hour, the bottom 10% of drivers, as far as earnings are concerned, versus the top 10% of drivers is close to 3x. We're doing the exact same thing. How am I standing out over the guy that's just making nothing versus me making 3x of what he's doing? So, as far as standing out, you have to, you have to use some strategy. You can't just willy-nilly turn the app on and go out there and say, feed me. I mean, it's just not going to work that way.
Okay, Louis, your thoughts?
I mean, I just keep thinking about, how different the pictures are in that video you showed us than an Uber driver. They're all people sitting in cafes, working at their laptops, creating content and doing video editing. And these are technical skills. They are not interchangeable people. They have unique perspectives on how to accomplish these creative tasks. And this is very different than interchangeable workers who are, basically treated as commodities that are just driving person from point A to point B. And I think it's very hard to raise the price of that as opposed to some sort of individual differentiator. So I think as we talk about this, there's a very big difference between what's going on Upwork than what's going on Uber. And I think that, part of the conversation has to be, well, how many people are in this one part? How many people are in another part? I'm part of a group that runs the Gig Economy Data Hub that tries to center this kind of information to have a sense of, well, what does the landscape look like? Because it's just as important that we support those new opportunities for well-paid work that are, independent and self-driven, as well as support people who are in these commodity jobs. But by lumping them together as gig economy, we miss a lot of the complexity.
Okay, so it sounds like certain things, like certain ride-sharing platforms, may have a low barrier to entry. As long as you have a driver's license and can drive, you can participate. But then maybe it takes a mindset of trying to figure out, like, how can you be continuously learning? And what skills can you develop so that you can offer different types of gig work? How important is that? Like,
I mean, look, Andy, as a rideshare driver, let's say you can start as a rideshare driver, right? You learn your city, you learn the flow, you learn the rhythm of your city. I mean, you're dealing with 20, 30 passengers at a time, right? Okay, so you do that for a couple of years, you save your money, and then now you're thinking, okay, well, why don't I get into some sort of private rides, right? For higher end clientele. Maybe you can move up and buy a better car or buy an SUV and offer some limo services or offer private trips with obviously correct insurance and LLCs and all that stuff. So even as an Uber driver, you have to think, how do I improve myself, right? Am I going to just keep driving people from point A to point B? Or can I do within the same industry, can I do something different, right? With a little bit of capital spent, I can improve my earnings. I can improve everything that I'm doing. I mean, you don't have to jump from industry to industry, but like the professor said, these low barrier entry jobs, starter jobs, let's say the Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, DoorDashers, that's the dilemma that we're facing, that people are just thinking this is all I can do. No, earn your money, do that job for a while, but then, all the other platforms like TaskRabbit and Work, Fiverr and Upwork, these people have more specialized skills, right? So while you're doing the low end gig work, acquire yourself those specialized skills and then move up as well if you want to stay in the gig economy. So, that's the message that we're trying to put out constantly.
Jeffrey, did you have anything to add? I mean, it sounds like, how does someone get to the point where they're using your platform so that it 1099 to become a W-2?
Yeah, I agree. And again, I go back to Professor Hyman's point, where I think one of the biggest challenges with the gig economy is everything is getting lumped together and they're materially different. Again, we need to separate out the commoditized services like driving me from point A to point B from the more professional or specialized or individual skilled services. As far as the Parker Dewey platform, I can tell you, again, maybe not 100%, but certainly close to 100% of the individuals who are on our platform, whether they are current college students, whether they're getting certificates from programs like IBM Skills Build, whether they're factory workers at Amazon who are part of the Career Choice program, almost 100% of them are looking to become W-2 workers. And they're on Parker Dewey, not for the side income. That's secondary. And we've actually surveyed the individuals on the Parker Dewey platform. Getting paid is vital because it ensures these experiences are accessible to everyone, but that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because they want the experience and they want the career exploration, and they want to reinforce the learning they're getting both in and out of the classroom. So they're using it as that pathway.
I think one of the problems in our economy today is that we have very few signals about potential hires. And one of the things we look to is GPA as a signal of, do they show up and do they work hard? But of course, school isn't for everybody. I say this as a professor. But that kind of, do they show up and do they work hard, is true for people who, pick vegetables all day. They work much harder than I do, and they show up much better than I do. And that kind of behavioral signal is actually probably more important to many businesses than whether or not you're good at a calculus test. And I think one of the tragedies in our economy today is we have no signal for behavior. And that's certainly what a lot of businesses are looking for. People that are good with other people that show up, take responsibility for their actions. And none of this is taught in school. So
Professor Hyman. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, please.
No, I thought you were done. Go ahead, please.
I am done. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. 100%. I could not agree with you any more fully. Again, all of these companies talk about skills-based hiring like it's something new. The reality is we've always hired experienced professionals using skills-based hiring because we have data points beyond academic pedigree. We could talk about their prior experiences. We could look at what they accomplished. We could see those skills that we know are most valuable from real experiences. At the early career, the only signals that exist are, again, academic pedigree. That's what we're trying to do, is empower these individuals to have more signals that they can share with the employer. The one thing I would take issue with, Professor Hyman, is I actually think things like communication and problem solving, coachability, et cetera, are taught in school. And they're taught irrespective of if you're a finance major versus a philosophy or history major. Part of what we're trying to do is empower these individuals to recognize that as a philosophy major, I learned things like how to communicate, how to craft an argument. As a student athlete, I learned and demonstrated things like coachability, helping these learners understand and appreciate those skills learned in classes that don't sound like job titles, and helping employers look beyond academic pedigree to understand that I want someone with strong communication skills. I can look beyond the marketing major.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm glad you think school still matters. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
If I may add to what Jeffrey said, I mean, a lot of people think it's a commoditized business, right? I mean, as far as a rideshare driver or a delivery driver, but we are in touch with people all day long, right? So we can improve our own communication skills, and we're dealing with 20, 30 passengers or 20, 30 food pickups. You're dealing with the front office or front of the restaurant. Then you're dealing with a customer, right? And then you're dealing with rideshare trips, people going to airports. You can create better communication skills. You can improve your skill set by just doing those. If you are lacking, you just, academics is obviously wonderful, but it, like Professor said, is not for everyone. And then you can go land a job with more better skill sets. I mean, you're literally communicating. If you're a driver, if you're driving Uber for 10 hours, you have 30 people in your car, all 30 are different, right? You have to be able to read the room, and you have to be able to cater and service, the rider as well as you can. And you do learn. You're constantly learning, even when you're doing these entry-level jobs, gig jobs.
I think it's
And
worth.
Sergio, I completely agree with you. And again, I hope I didn't offend you by talking about Uber or Lyft being commoditized, because I think it's worth thinking through. It might be commoditized to me as the customer. As long as someone gets me from point A to point B, I am happy. Maybe there's a little bit of nuance in how they get me there and the level of communication. But to your point, I love the fact that you're empowering the individual driver to take ownership of his or her career and think about how those skills they're learning as an Uber driver, DoorDash delivery person, et cetera, can be applied as they think about longer term, more financially rewarding careers.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a stigma attached, right? I mean, they go like, "Oh, you're just an Uber driver." Well, I'm an Uber driver, right? And to me is I think it's kind of an unfair situation. Just because it's an entry-level job, you're just an Uber driver. I mean, we have a community truly super educated. I mean, I was just talking to a gentleman who's going through a PhD program and is driving Uber, right? So to us, it's not it's not what you know, right? It's who you are, how you present yourself. Why does one driver get 60% of the time tips while the other one doesn't? Because he has better communication skills, right? So you can improve all these things even with an entry-level job or entry-level gig work like Uber and Lyft and DoorDash are.
Yeah, one thing that I want to say is that we didn't go in this direction, but it's worth thinking about, because I've been spending a lot of time on LinkedIn lately. So shout out to our LinkedIn Live viewers. I see a lot of people who spent most of their career in corporate America. And then either because of a layoff or because they decide to go off on their own, they've seen opportunities where the gig economy gives them tremendous benefit. Whereas they were working for a company and felt constrained under a manager that they had difficulty with, or just weren't getting promoted, suddenly they could take their skill and go off on their own, hang their own shingle, and do so with a lot of independence and flexibility. I want to move to segment 3. We're going to talk about navigating the uncertainties of the gig worker.